The Poolhouse in Weinwick, Oregon, by Samuel Geist. For Christina and Dean, the shrapnel of my contagion. If you know, you know. The following is a transcript of a transcript, having been posted to an early internet forum page called OregonTalesandTrails.com in 1998 by an anonymous user. It's claimed to have been typed based upon a book of letters addressed to someone named Conrad. The story was shared as a popular copypasta by email. Each letter was posted in succession, each week after the first, inciting interest from several users. After this forum soap opera ended, it received little buzz before falling away to obscurity. Forgotten for years, it's recently gained a small amount of interest as a cult study, after being asked about on a few obscure media forums. Efforts have been made by forum users to find the person or persons that this might have been written by, but few leads have turned up in years since. Regardless, it's an interesting read and a testament to early internet legends and rumor farming. I'd like to personally thank users Anna Smiles for No One and Peachy78 for their help in cataloguing and archiving what remains of this little story from the good old days. Please enjoy. 8/15/1995. Hey Conrad. Boy, do I wish you were here and not me. You should see the state of this place. Now that the holidays are coming up, streets smell like pumpkin, there's spooky decorations stuck on every porch, tree, and window. I actually just got done setting up this little pumpkin patch out front of the rec. The elementary school kids are going to come by on Friday, pick up the ones they want to take home and carve. I did it without any help from our all-powerful manager Vince, too. Cassandra actually helped me out. She felt bad that she was going to have to leave me here to finish the rest of my shift alone, but I don't hold it against her. I'd leave too if I had the chance. I did ask her to rake up the leaves on the baseball and track field before she locked up, though. Really, it's the least she could do. Don't even get me started on the madness at school. The holiday's taken over the place. Last week, we had a group of those metalhead kids run screaming down the hall wearing Halloween costumes. Miss Crouch caught one of them and chewed him out in front of her entire fourth period class. Truly a testament to the stock we grow here in bumfuck nowhere. I'm actually writing this whilst on shift. I'm in the lobby, sitting at the reception desk. I've been staring at the tacky wooden walls so long that I think I'm going crazy. I really hate that sign above the door. You know the one. It's so gross and cheery, I can't get those silly words out of my head. Thank you for having fun with us. Please, come back to Weinwick Recreation Center again soon. It's so damn hokey that it makes me want to barf. I'll have to head out and do our security rounds here in a minute, but it can wait until I'm finished writing. Ever since you left, I've been stuck with twice the work and half the sleep. I've been thinking about moving to day shifts, since I'm all alone now anyways. But the pay is really good. Little Mimi needs her cat food, and I've got to make the big bucks so she doesn't starve. She misses you, Dopey. I'm sure she hates being home alone all night. At least when you were here, she had a visitor sometimes. How's university? I hear the Ducks are having a rough start this season. Can't say I'm doing much better. Been a few weeks since I heard back from you, Dopey. Maybe you've gone and left your old buddy to focus on a new girlfriend, huh? Boy, would Vince get a kick out of that. Both of us stuck working nights here at the rec center, and you're up in Eugene, dating some co-ed. If that's the case, I really hope she's nice. Maybe you could bring the mystery lady back home with you this summer. You could show her all the wonderful sights we have here in Weinwick. I bet she'd dump you on the spot. Anyway, I don't really have much to update you on. I'm still here, still being Vince's good little watchdog on graveyard shift. Though nights have been pretty busy the past couple of weeks. The Weinwick Wombats have been down on the baseball field every other night, putting in some practice before the season starts. Jeez, seems like forever ago you and me were wearing those uniforms. Remember when you were getting hassled by that little prick down the street? He was talking mad crap whilst you're on the pitching mound. He was up to bat, and you nailed him in the forehead? You didn't even get a chance to swing. God, that was hilarious. Also, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews have been hitting the gym like nobody's business. Can I just say, cleaning their sweat off the equipment might be the nastiest part of my day. Tell you what, when you get back, you can take care of the bleaching the weights. No more old people sweat for me, thank you. At any rate, I'm okay. I get bored a lot though. Vince hasn't been showing up lately. I haven't seen him in a week, but I guess I shouldn't complain. Ever since he came back from uni, he's been a real stain. You better not come back with the same attitude, or I'll kick your ass, Dopey. You know, I don't think he's doing too well. I mean, yeah, he smiles and stuff, but he looks very, very tired. Oh no. He's all sweaty, his shirt sticks to his skin all the time, and he's got these fat purple circles under his eyes. You know he dyes his hair now? Yeah, that's right. He's now the only Bellinchamp in Weinwick city limits with black hair instead of blonde. I think he's got himself on some sort of pedestal. None of the family's heard from him in a minute either. That cousin of mine, am I right? Speaking of the rest of the Bellinchamp tribe, nobody really visits me in the house anymore. I think they just assume I'm okay. I've been by myself this long. What do they have to worry about? Truth be told, though, I can't be alone here too long. I just sleep so I don't have to look around. I spend most of my day like that, passed out on that old floral couch with the TV on. Half the time I'm wrapped up like a mummy in my mum's old blankets. The heater stopped working last week. I leave all the lights on too, just so my room is bright when I wake up. I wasn't any comfier when you were here, but I really miss the company. I see other 16-year-old guys running around with girls at the movies, or shopping downtown. Meanwhile, I'm at home, staring at Mimi in the 1950s furniture. It's a real drag. Don't feel bad though. I'm proud of you. Really. You're super smart. I'm sure it'll be fun up at uni. I just miss you, is all. Alright, Con. I best be getting back. I've still got to patrol through the fields out back, and I've got to check up on the Poolhouse. God, I wish they'd just light the whole damn building on fire. Those giant windows on the front really bug me out. They just stare at you, like the thing is hungry or something. You know, the other night, Vince caught one of the Peltzer kids throwing rocks at them. I wish he would have done a better job. Maybe taken one of that place's eyes out? They're supposed to come by in the spring to renovate the place, get the pool cleaned and stuff. Man, that place hasn't been open since my dad was a kid. But I guess it beats building a whole new deal from scratch. Still though, it's just so big and empty. I'll write you again soon, Conrad. Gonna keep all my letters in a notebook. That way, you'll have to take your time reading these instead of some dusty old textbook. Talk to you later, chump. Jed B. 8/15/1995, 11:30 p.m. Con, I just got back from my rounds. I had to call the police. You gotta hear about this, man. I'll tell you all about it later. I can't think straight now. The water was everywhere. There was a guy in the place. I don't know. I don't know. I gotta call Vince anyway, get him to help me figure this out. I don't get paid enough to have Sheriff Gerald hounding my ass. Oh, god damn it, that guy's face is just sitting in my head, all twisted around like that. Jesus Christ. I wish you were here. Jed B. 8/17/1995. Hey, Conrad. God, you're not gonna believe a lick of this. I'm not even sure any of this has really happened at this point. I'm at home now. Just got back from school, actually. I haven't really gotten a chance to sleep at all, not even at the police station. They left me alone in that room for a while, but I wasn't really tired. My brain was going 1,000,000 miles a second for hours and hours. Didn't help that the walls were all white. It stinks like hell, too. But the receptionist at the station gave me a cup of coffee every couple hours. She was this real nice old lady, skin like tissue paper. I must have had about 10 cups before they let me go. At any rate, it was better sitting in there than in a room alone with Sheriff Gerald. I'll never understand why people would vote for that guy. That mean... Okay, so I'm gonna get this down before I tuck her out. Mimi's staring me down. I think she knows I'm tired and wants to cuddle. Okay, here we go. I was on my walk. I went through the employee exit and headed towards the locked gate where we keep the golf carts. Now, I wanted to grab one so the rounds didn't take so long, but the engine's busted on one and the other wasn't even filled up, so I'm walking. So I open the gate and close it behind me, and dig out the giant baton flashlight from the pocket of my uniform jacket. It's snowing, of course. There was like 6 inches already, and there must have been a foot by morning. But I started out on the field, trudging along. Thinking about it now, it was like this great big sea of snow from there, right up to the fence line, every inch snowy white. I could see the waves of fat snowflakes falling and felt them melt onto my cheeks. It was freezing. The whole night was windy and white and cold, except for the pool house, standing out there in the corner of the property. It was black in the night, tall and looming like a storybook monster. You could still make out those damn windows, though, the light from the wreck glancing off the glass. And I walked out there feeling like it was watching me all the while. I must have only been a few yards away when I heard the crash. I was hit by the echo of shattered glass, and I know I should have just called the cops. I froze up, Con. I stood out there in the snow and in the cold like a moron. I don't know what I was thinking. I could just walk back and get to the jailhouse on the phone. But I didn't. I followed it. I just started jogging towards the pool house. I get to those big wooden doors, keeled over and breathing like I'd ran a mile. Hot fog shooting from my mouth like water from a hose, and I fish the ring of keys from my belt loop. I'm jerking the stupid old lock around trying to stab the bastard into the keyhole, and I swear to God there's this horrible scream. I mean, every fucking inch of my body lights up like a Christmas tree, and I'm standing there with a head full of static. It was so loud, and it was really, really sad sounding. Like a baby almost, just pathetic. The hair on my head is standing up and I twist the key without even realizing it. The scream was echoing through the field in my head, and I can still remember the wet way it warbled out. Like it was a banshee drowning. The lock clicks and I feel it fall from the chain around the door handle and bounce off the toe of my work boot. That giant old door creaked open, just enough to let the dark out a bit. I could smell this awful mossy smell from in there. Mold or something. It was ancient and terrible and nasty, and I just heard the most terrifying scream I'd ever heard from inside. I don't know, Con. I just don't know why I went in. I was all up in arms, and my blood felt hot. I wanted to be done with this whole thing in a hurry. But you could say that the prospect of calling Vince up late that night was the real reason I decided to be brave in the dark. Who knows, right? They must have left this place to rot, Con. From whatever day back then that they shut these doors, they must have let well enough alone. My first footsteps pressed into the bed of dead leaves and pine needles. When I followed it in, I felt the air choke the breath out of me. Not only did it stink, it was disgustingly warm. Outside, I've got Jack Frost jumping on my dick, but in here, it's an absolute swamp. When I swung the flashlight around, I could see the moldy wall tiles glisten with condensation. The floor was littered with faded old sign-in papers and dust. You could barely make out the checkered panel flooring underneath. I take it a little further and I catch the words, "Pool this way, please no running," painted all pleasantly on hanging signs right above the end of the hallway. I even said it when I was standing there. I said, no way, no fucking chance I'm getting caught any further in this goddamn creep house. But there was that scream, There was the crashing outside, and one right after the other too. That wasn't just a problem. This was bad. I had to go down there. Maybe Vince would have had me minced at the thought of instant paperwork, but Gerald would have had my ass jailed if I'd just given a shout and left them to figure it out. And that's just how I figured it, standing there in that warm, dark pit. I don't know. I was stuck, and there was really only one way out without losing my job. So I called out to whoever and whatever, starting to walk toward the pool room. The stink doesn't let up in there. I've been trying to compare it to something since I got home, trying to find something close, but nothing comes to mind. What's even creepier are the vines of dead gourd plants crawling along the seam of the wall and floor. Long dead, probably years old, now spreading like cracks across the tile, above and below on the walls. I watched them all disappear once I turned the corner at the end of the hallway and stepped into the dark. There was this rush of air as I walked in, like the immediate impression that the room had gotten impossibly big. The dark in there felt heavier than in the hallway for sure. So there I was, standing in this hall, and the stink was stronger here. I could smell it waft over me from the center of the room. There was this slapping sound, and I guess it was the pool. The water was washing against the rim, heavy and strong, like someone had just tossed a big rock in there, just a few minutes before I had gotten in. I called out again. I didn't want to go further in if I didn't have to, and after nobody called back, I was pissed that I had to investigate a bit more. The pool was in here with me, though I couldn't see much in the beam of my flashlight, but I knew it was there, and I knew it was big. 27 yards of pitch-black ooze waited for me somewhere ahead, wanting to swallow me up. No idea how deep it is. I don't want to think about it. I hate remembering the noise of the churning water bouncing off the walls in there. So, do I leave? Do I take a couple laps around the room to see if someone's hiding out? I didn't have a choice. As I was walking further in, I kicked something and heard this ping sound. Whatever it was rolled out into the dark. I heard it roll over the tile floor and then the ominous plop sound of it landing in the water. I swing the flashlight around, not too sure of what to expect at first, but I caught a metallic glint in the nasty green waves. It was a can of spray paint. The water knocked it around, the little ball inside hitting the walls of the can as it turned in the waves. Someone had brought in a can of red spray paint and emptied the damn thing. I figure somewhere on one of those walls I'd see whatever they painted, but I didn't get time to look for it. Conrad, this was all so blurry in my head. There was so much that happened last night, I just don't know how to get into it. But it was like this. I was watching the can bob around in the water when I felt something wrap around my ankle. It gripped me hard, and instantly I knew it was someone's hand. I balled it up like I'd been electrocuted. The hand held tight though, and with the tile around the poolside being so slick, my foot didn't even know where to land. I smacked right into the floor and hit my head on the ground. But I didn't think twice about it. In a second, I was smacking the flashlight into whatever was on my ankle. It came down hard, and I heard something crack underneath the head of the light. Whatever had me let me go. I wasn't going to let it get another hold, so I squirmed my way back and away from it. There was this horrible, wheezing sound, and I whipped the beam of my flashlight in its direction. I wish I just called the police, Con. I really do. I want you to know that if I would have been in my right mind, I'd have helped. I mean it, really. About 5 feet away from me there was this guy. He was crumpled in a ball on the floor, soaking wet. He was laying in a puddle of sludge. His shirt and pants soaked to his skin. I noticed his mop of black hair and the way his ribs poked through when he exhaled. At his sneakers, a trail of something red and whatever else led back to the edge of the pool. I had a feeling I knew what it was. I couldn't get a word out. For a second, our breaths were the only thing I could hear. Then I saw his fingers uncurl, and he patted around the empty air. I guess he wanted to grab onto something, anything. That was when he looked up at me. Conrad, I was frozen. His hair was curled over his forehead, and I saw his eyes. They were bloodshot, shaking in his head. I watched him enter the light, and I saw that half of his face was gone. Not just scratched or burned. The skin was melting down his cheek. Clumps of pasty white flesh slid down his chin. I could see glazed muscle sinew showing in some places, and the eye was bubbling around the rim. It was covered in this ink, some kind of black oily stuff. Everywhere it touched, another inch of his head gave way. A stream of blood swam down the ridge of his nose, mixing with the oil. We locked eyes, and his mouth opened, and I could see a segment of jawbone underneath his teeth. He screamed. It was loud and gargled and painful, and I pissed myself, Conrad. I pissed myself right there on the floor. We both laid there in the quiet, myself on the verge of going apeshit. Then, I caught something moving behind his legs. I shot the light over, and I barely caught something moving. Something on the edge of the pool, hovering over the end of that bright red trail of blood. It was hard to make out. It was all so fast. But it wasn't really anything I can describe. Think of a trash bag. The lip of a big black trash bag just slinking back into the pool. That was it. That's what it looked like. Well, at that point, I had a fucking fit. I started kicking and struggling to pull myself up and dropped the flashlight somewhere in the moment. I ran, Conrad. I ran so goddamn fast all the way through the snow and the gates. I must have slipped 100 times, but I didn't stop until I had the rec phone in my hand and the sheriff's number dialed. Nobody answered the first 2 times, but I kept trying. I got them to send Gerald and Carlson and asked for an ambulance. Said they'd have to grab one from the hospital in Portland, but I said do it anyway. I sat there on the floor, under those fluorescent lights, and I cried into my knees until they came back. Then I heard them pull into the parking lot outside, sirens blaring. When I finally looked up, I saw the blues and reds shine on that stupid sign above the door. Welcome to Weinwick Recreation Center. We have fun here. It's a stupid thing to remember, but in a weird way, I thought it was funny. Alright, I'm really put out now, buddy. I don't know how to end this letter now, so don't expect any Shakespeare here. Good night. 8/19/1995. Wow. What a killer week. Oh my god, I can feel bags starting to grow into my eyelids. Hey Dopey, I think I ended the last one in a weird place, so I'll fix up a bit here. Let me get my bearings though first. I just got back from school, and guess who I got on the ringer? Vince Bellinchamp. He's better on the phone than in person, but not by much. Chewed my ass for like 15 minutes. I didn't even have a chance to get a word in. How about that? I'm telling you, Con, he's weird now. I wish he didn't leave so soon after he got back from uni. You didn't get a chance to see how he's been. He's meaner and nastier, and there's a stick up his ass something awful. He's telling me how I should have just let this whole thing alone, and how Sheriff Gerald hounded him with questions all morning, and I'm lucky we're family and that I didn't lose my job. He wants to go back to the Poolhouse tonight to clean up the graffiti. I asked what's the point of that? They're just going to fix the place up during the renovation. He said that I deserved it for having him called back to the rec center last night. God, what a bastard. He asked if I was coming into work, and I said yes. Of course, I wanted to slam the phone down after telling him where to shove it, but I got too scared. So I just finished school, and I've got 5 hours till my shift starts. Wonderful. So let me read back and see where I left off. Okay, I remember. So Gerald and Carlson drove up, and I spent the first hour sitting on the back of their squad car. I must have repeated the whole thing 7 times. It was a real drag. Then I hear Vince's F-150 plow into the parking lot and my heart stopped in a second. He was acting all pro too. He stood there with his arms folded, dealing with all the questions like he was some kind of responsible citizen. He lets them into the field through the side gate and the ambulance heads towards the pool house. I was thankful. I really didn't want to see that guy again. Even that soon after being in the pool house, I felt horrible about leaving him in there all alone. Then I catch a look at Vince after the cops gather up together around the car, and he's scratching at his arm really hard. There's beads of sweat on his forehead, or maybe it was snow. Either way, he was looking like a small fish on a big hook. He was staring daggers at me, like the guy melting into the pool house was all my fault. Yeah, I did all that just to bother you, Vince. If only. 8/20/1995. Okay, Conrad, you're gonna flip out after you finish this letter, and believe me, I'm having an even more insane time right now. Alright, let me get it all together in my brain, jotting all of this down right after I got out of the pool house. So I'm gonna need a second. I just don't know how to start, you know? It's absolutely insane, and I'm really having a hard time here getting the words out. Okay. From the top, I guess. So, I got in a few minutes late today. Cassandra was really understanding about the whole thing from the other night. She bought me a couple donuts from the 7-Eleven, actually. She wanted me to talk to her about everything, but I told her it was okay. It wasn't, but I don't want to bother that lady with my horror stories. She even offered to take the walk for me tonight, but I told her I'd be alright, not to sweat it. She asked me if I had someone hang around earlier, some guy named Darby. I said no, that I don't even know anyone called Darby. She let it go. Weird. So she heads out, grabs her bag and tosses the key ring to me. Then she gives me one last look, closes the door behind her. It was just me sitting in the lobby with a flickering overhead light and cheap plastic plants surrounding me. There's the sound of the ventilation unit pumping warm air through the building, and the heavy breaths of old folks in the weight room. I don't know why, but just sitting there all by myself was really heavy. I was thinking about the guy laying on the floor. His breathing was so harsh. It sounded like it hurt him to inhale at all. I pictured him on the floor of the lobby in front of me, clothes soaked and blood trailing off somewhere in my periphery. I must have sat there staring at the ghost on the floor for 30 minutes. 2 strangers stuck together in an empty room, one already dead but still there. I heard the old couple say their goodbyes. I remember them paying for the time they were there. I remember them leaving. But I never looked away from the ground. Eventually I caught myself and looked around, seeing the outside bathed in black behind the windows. I got up and locked the doors, and then set off to the maintenance shed. I needed some cleaner and a big brush, a bucket too. I got everything and headed out to the pool house across the field, lugging my cleaning supplies along the way. I could feel it staring down at me. I hate that stupid building. The snow was still there, covering everything up to those big wooden doors. There were 2 warning signs plastered on them now, but I opened the door just the same. The place was just as warm as the night before, the moisture in the air choking breath out of me like huffing a bottle of vinegar. It was only when I got to the actual pool room that I remembered how pitch black it was. So, imagine how stupid I felt having to drop all the supplies and wander back out to the maintenance shed for a bigger light. Now, you know the tools shed, you know what we have in there. I'm struggling to find anything to light the place up a little, but I only found a pile of old chlorine buckets. I wish they'd dumped the whole load of that into the stinking tar pit. Anyway, I wasn't going to take that little baton of light and try to wash away the paint on that wall all night. I needed something bigger, so I thought it'd be a better idea to head back to my place for a second and grab my dad's old nautical spotlight. He used to use that thing at the auto shop when he worked alone. It's big and bright and has no problem staying on when it's hooked up to a generator. I locked up the wreck. There's not usually any business past 11 anyway. I jogged home and dragged the stupid thing all the way back to the pool house. I took one of the golf cart batteries and some duct tape and kind of rigged everything together. It looked like shit, but I nearly blinded myself once it was on and shining. Bet you would have done a better job, Dopey. You're the mechanic between us, for sure. Anyway, pow! The thing is running, and there's a constant coughing sound pumping out of the generator. The whole place erupted, that chugging sound bouncing off those walls and coming back down at me. The spotlight stabs through the dark like a drill, and I can see clear across the room. Still, the dark in there crept out where the beam couldn't reach. I picked the thing up. You should try it sometime. I nearly popped my spine lugging this thing, and take a look around the place. There's strings of police tape, cut loose and blowing around in the cold breeze. I can see the walls, black mold chewing it up from the roof down. There's a thick blanket of mouse skeletons and pine needles everywhere, and I got sick thinking about how many I'd probably stepped on the way in there. I planned around, looking for any sign of the graffiti. Look had it, about a foot above me, the guy had tagged the wall in big red letters. It almost looked like modern art, surrounded by dead vines and sun-bleached walls. I guess this guy was a big fan of the local urban legends, and not a big fan of the sheriff. He wrote, "It dwells still. Eat shit, Gerald." I laughed out loud to myself. It was hilarious. Gerald coming in to tape off the whole pool house as a crime scene, then looking up to see this beautiful billboard. As I got the chuckles out, I heard something behind me. It sounded like a wet slap, and I jumped out of my skin, swinging the light around. Then I saw the pool, holding the light at my waist, and watched the swamp of blackish-green slop sit and churn. A weird mist hung over the water, just waiting around the air. The water was rippling out from the middle, sending out those little waves to the edges. It spooked me at first, nearly dropped the damn spotlight. But I stood there, just thinking that it couldn't be a big deal. They probably just kicked a pebble over and hadn't noticed. Now it was probably sinking down to the bottom of the puke-colored abyss. Still, though, the thought of something popping out of there sent chills down my spine. I thought about that bag I'd seen slip out from behind the guy the other night, the one that had slunken off into the pool. What was it? Something he brought in to get rid of? Maybe more spray paint? It was hard telling, not knowing, but something was bothering me. It felt like a match was being held on the back of my neck, not burning, but it was getting warm. How did that guy do that to himself? Not his face, I mean. Maybe that's what was in the bag. He tagged the place, then splashed himself with Drano or something. That poor guy held up in there by himself, skin falling off his head. I hated to remember the face. I hated to remember the scream even more. But there I was, about to wash away the last thing this guy ever did. His last footprint, if you think about it. Then it happened again. There was a splash, and I know I didn't cause it myself. It happened, and I heard the noise echo off the huge chamber around me. So, taking a second to catch my breath, I pointed my little supernova towards the water again. But there's just little waves. Now at this point, I'm really trying to puff myself up. I'd never seen you or Vince scared of nothing, unless it were a police badge. So I'm being a little manly man, just like you two. I take a step towards the edge of the pool. The light goes about a foot farther, but there's still that shadow creeping around the end of the beam. So I go a little further. I'm breathing deep, and there's hairs standing up on both arms, even though I'm practically standing in a sauna. But I keep myself staring, waiting to see a mouse or something taking a little swim across the water. Instead, I only make out little outlines of water bugs and pine needles drifting around the surface like pool floaties. The mist is getting thinner, probably escaping through the newly broken window on the other side of the room. There's just quiet now, but I can still hear my heart pumping 1,000 miles a minute in my ears. Then it drifts into the light. It floats across the water gently, slowly coming into view. The boundary of the light hits this, mass of some kind. I could only see the rim at first, almost blending into the water, but not quite. It was the edge of some kind of growth, I guess. It was almost purple on top, with black boils growing on its skin. Some of it bent under the water's surface, whilst most of it just rested on top. It crawled out under the mist of the light, and just kept growing. The blanket of weird tar stuff was just floating towards me. I kept the light on it, stepping closer. It was huge, Conrad. I mean, the size of a Volkswagen Bug. Easily. It wasn't a perfect circle. It was unevenly stretched out, end to end. Wisps of this black stuff came off of it as it waded through the water towards me. Picture a big deflated raft covered in oil, if that helps. I was speechless. I mean, I was in the room alone, so I guess it didn't matter if I had anything to say. But I couldn't look away from it. I felt like gagging, but couldn't get one out. I just crept closer to the water, staring at the map of disgusting, pimply skin on the surface. I could see tiny things caught in the edges of it. Cigarette butts and pine cones, but also soggy, wet mouse carcasses. One stared up at me with hollowed eye sockets and peeling skin. It was a mass of sinew and bones, floating in the water towards me. I wanted to poke it, if I'm being honest. It was just so amazingly gross. I couldn't believe it was real. 50 years of rot and bile sitting in the water just collected together, making a raft of nastiness. I couldn't even hear my heart now. Not as I crouched down at the edge. Now that I was closer, I could see those water bugs jumping away from the thing, crawling over one another to get as far away as they could. The thing wasn't moving, at least that I could see, and yet I could make out tiny waves spreading out from under the lip. It moved steady and slow, and I gripped the light tighter as it did. There was little plumes of steam, I guess, coming off of the surface, like it was really warm. It smelled, and I can't even try to describe to you how bad it was. I was maybe 2 or 3 feet away from it now, just close enough for comfort. That's when it leapt up. The whole mass of the thing shifted and lurched upwards, and I can only see the underside of it as it caught the air. There's a forest of tiny black feelers, all wiggling and glistening in the light, covered every inch of this thing. A torrent of water slaps me in the face, and I keel over as the lip of this thing lunges towards me. I smack my ass on the ground and wipe off my eyes, only to see it wrapped around the toe of my boot, its little feelers latching onto the leather. The light fell and rolled over next to me, but still shone on the pool side. The black finger things were wriggling around, trying to gain ground on my foot. This slopping black gunk comes off of them, dripping down the foot of my shoe. I stared at it first, not even sure what had happened. I was sitting there, watching this blanket thing lick at my shoe. In a few seconds, I was getting a hold of myself. I watched the creature cling to the edge, still trying to get after me. It was trying to suck me back into the water. Conrad, I had no idea what the hell to do. I was just sat there, watching this stupid thing slap at my pant leg, struggling to get a grip. It was trying to pull me in, like it was hungry. It was fighting with everything it had, the sides of it waving and spraying water around pointlessly in an effort to reel me towards the pool. I taste that smelly pool water, and it's dumped on me, and I get a grip. I wasn't thinking about it, or what it was, or what was happening, just that I wasn't going to let this thing get me. I just start to kick at it. But its hold was really strong, even with only the little bit of me that it had. I reached out for my boot string to see if I could quickly untie it and pull it away, but I accidentally swiped at the stuff it was drooling on me, and I pulled my hand back real fast. At first it was cold, but then I felt the skin on my finger start to burn. There was this horrible feeling like I'd stuck my hand against a red-hot stovetop. It wasn't stopping either. It was burrowing into my fingers, and I started to scream. Holding my hand against my shirt, I felt tears welling up in the corner of my eyes, and I just smashed against the thing with my other boot. I stomped over and over again, hearing my kicks plant wetly against the thing. Then there was slack, and I pulled my boot away from the edge as quick as I could. In my rush to get away, I kicked the light, and it rolled towards the corner of the room, now facing the wall. It was just me in the dark now. Me and that thing.